Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Joe, and today's guest is Anjali Patel Mehta. She's an ex-investment banker, keen traveler, golfer, art and design lover, active mother of two, and an alumni of Wellesley and the Indian School of Business. She founded her fashion brand Verandah out of the need to find customized travel separates made using ultra-soft and artisanal fabrics and handwork from India. All of that without any formal training in fashion, and a life spent between Mumbai and New York. Anjali, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Joe. I appreciate it. And it's lovely to be in conversation with you today.
Fantastic. Well, this podcast is really aimed at both aspiring entrepreneurs as well as existing entrepreneurs. It's always useful to hear other business people's stories about how they got to where they got to and what all the hurdles and obstacles were along the way. Now, there's something to be said about staying in your lane, and there's something to be said about changing lanes. And yours is a big change of lane from investment banking into fashion. Amazing. And that too, like you said, without that much of formal training and so on. So it's going to be an amazing story. But I always like to kind of start at the beginning in terms of what helped direct your ambition. What was the direction actually from your childhood, career-wise?
So Joe, I know it seems like switching lanes completely, and I think most people were very surprised because neither was I very fashionable in school. I mean, I was quite sporty, and I dressed okay, but I definitely wasn't one of the fashionate girls. My mother was an artist. She doesn't practice anymore. She studied in the south of India at an artist village called the Cholamandal Artist Village, and we spent quite a few of our summers actually down there, sort of playing by the beach. It's in a small little village outside Madras. And my parents lived in England for some time. They were very bohemian. My mother was very bohemian. Both my parents were avid sort of art lovers, and I grew up, and my mother worked at the Jahangir Art Gallery in Mumbai. So I spent most of my afternoons after school at the art gallery or the swimming pool or on the squash court. So that was really my exposure to art. It was very much a part of our life, and we never thought of it as in sort of anything outside. So art, design, sort of color pattern, interiors, all of that world of aesthetic, very bohemian aesthetic was really my upbringing. I was exposed to it through my mother and probably my grandmother. And I loved design from an early age. I used to paint. I wasn't as good to be, as they call it, a painter who went to art school, but I certainly wanted to be an architect. There was no architect in the family, and I went to Wellesley actually to study architecture. And my father went to MIT, and I was got into the dual degree program to do sort of, we could apply for a 5-year program. And my first semester, I didn't take art. I took an economics class, and my host father was an economics professor. So I actually just took one economics class and I forgot everything else because I said, wow, this is super fun. It's the way the world works. And I did science. So I fell in love with economics and also fell in love with the idea of what was Wall Street. Because at that point in 97, there was a Wall Street Journal article that said 50% of the women on Wall Street went to Wellesley. So I was really in this women's college that, had a lot of economic students, and a lot of them ended up on Wall Street. And I was quite intrigued by the notion, sort of just shoved art aside and the concept of anything creative related, because my mom always said there's one artist in the family, we don't need 3. We don't need another one. And my father's a chemical engineer, so sort of kept us on the straight and narrow. I have a sister who studied liberal arts at Smith and also did economics. And we both went into finance. We both moved to New York. She did M&A. I was a trader. I'd started out at Goldman. I had a kind of a blinkers on for that Wall Street job. And to be honest, I really loved it, loved the markets. And I decided to come back to India for personal reasons. So I had to hide and go to business school. So that's where I met you at ISB.
Absolutely.
So that's my switch to design actually is, if for people that know me, is not so accidental as it appears, because Veranda as a brand for me is a feeling. It's a feeling of artistic expression, and fashion is simply a means to express yourself through what you're wearing. So, like, for example, what I'm wearing has, a leopard on it. It's my new collection. It's inspired by the leopards of Kashmir. It's very travel inspired. As you know, I was bedridden for quite a while. I had a back problem, a severe spinal accident, and I had a chronic back injury, which made me leave investment banking. And I left out of choice, and I wanted to do something that brought me joy on a break. So what brought me joy was really to design. And it was a super accidental career. One thing led to the other. I put in $2,300 into the business and bootstrapped it entirely. And one show led to the next, to the next, to the next. And I got into Fashion Week, and here we have a business. And it's been a super decade, to be honest. It's been one of a complete learning, thrown to the wild, thrown to the dogs, and learned to swim on my own. So very exciting. My husband's from a garment background and in denim, and I saw that every day. And I said, over my dead body, will I ever join this line? And here I am, and I love it.
Right.
But what it allows me to do is really express color, the joy of patterns and beauty of India, and the vividness of the prints and patterns, and I design all of that into clothing. And sustainability is a huge part of what we do, in terms of just not even what we do, just a focus of the brand, and that's been for the last since 2015.
That's
since my
absolutely
first
amazing.
show.
So do you actually make in India then?
So we design, and actually absolutely everything, every part of the brand is actually produced in India, with the exception of our swimwear, which is Italian made. And the reason for that being that Italians do that very well. Their quality is excellent. We don't have the best swim making capability in India just yet, apart from a couple of niche factories. And for me, I work with an Italian company called Aquafil, which produces a yarn, which is regenerated nylon. So because our brand is a conscious brand, I believe in a very circular design philosophy. And so from yarn to end product, everything has to be sort of, for me, Veranda is sort of closed loop.
Right.
So we work with regenerated nylon, which is produced in Italy. The textiles produced in Italy as well. And it's a recycled polyamide, and then it goes to the factory close by. So it's low carbon footprint, closed loop, circular, and then we import some into India and then export the rest of the world from there. So that's made there. In India, we produce the fabric, we design the prints, we design the surface texturing, everything, and the production, and we have that all in-house. So I built a small little capability, and so we have a full team here that does it.
That's amazing. So in terms of the way that this idea began, or rather your evaluation of the idea, obviously you had an interest in fashion itself, but did you explore that or evaluate its business potential at that stage, or is it much more of a kind of organic thing that began from just your own interest, a passion project, and then kind of expanded out from that?
So it definitely, great question. I think certainly it started with a passion project for the simple reason I was unable to actually go back to a corporate job. So I started this on a break, but type A's can't really sit and chill. So I said, waited till my kids were a little older. I had a couple of kids as soon as I left banking, because I think I was fairly burnt out in that career with a health problem. And I loved it. It taught me a lot. But actually, I thought, if I go down this road, I'm never going to need my banking again. And I was so wrong, because it's come back to be the most useful tool in my toolkit. Absolutely. Because I think even from the very beginning, from inception, one thing I always kept in mind was, who is your customer? Like, know your customer. What, are you trying to solve for something? I was trying to solve personally for like soft, comfortable, luxurious clothing that was different, that made me feel like I was on holiday even when I was not. And so for me, Verandah is very much a feeling. When people ask me, what is Verandah? And I'm like, it's a feeling. Because in investment banking, as you know, we wore black, white, gray, and beige for pretty much most of our corporate life, especially those days. And I used to get so bored. And on the weekends, I would zip into the most colorful thing and, some ripped denim, a kaftan, and dress very bohemian. But then I had to sort of get into my corporate little avatar. And I wanted Verandah to feel people wearing the brand to feel like they were on holiday. Today, I'm sitting in an office, I'm wearing something, sort of bright, colorful that tells a story. It tells a story of something I didn't know about. It tells a story of India. Today, if somebody sees a print, it's not just a print. It's a story within a story within a story. And when people buy the brand, I want people to understand that that's what I'm trying to share about part of my journey. And it's very much inspired by travel. As I couldn't walk for a year, I made a bucket list saying that I want to go on road trips, I want to travel, I want to see the world. And that really gave me this notion that, life is too short. You really live every day like your last. And the pandemic has taught everybody that. And I truly feel that by telling stories of what we feel passionate about, if you do everything with passion, the money will come, the business will come. But that singular focus of sort of unit economics was very important, because I bootstrapped the business. Look, I put in $2,300 in the business and I said, okay, this has to make the next season and the next season and the next season. And so the idea to raise outside financing also was a big decision. And, at that point, it was post-pandemic. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and it was kind of go big or go home. To grow any business, you kind of need to take a call. Do you want to take outside capital? But when I started this, to answer your question, it was a passion project. I got a little serious after I got into Fashion Week, and I did runway. But when my kids were older, I said my first Miami Swim Week. So really, I didn't retail anywhere publicly until 2018. So I took 7 years to discover what I was good at, what I love to do, how I could do it, and really build up the capabilities to be able to execute it. Because I think the biggest challenge is for creatives is that you're able to visualize something amazing, but if you're not able to deliver quality and on time, you don't have a business. You don't have two legs to stand on if you're not able to deliver your product in the way that it, there's no meaning of having a buyer if you can't, get your product through on the shop floor in time, right? So the notion that's very romantic to say, oh, fashion designer, and, I don't like to call myself a fashion designer. It's kind of what I am. But I'd like to think of myself, and I am the only designer sort of behind the brand. We have a small team here in India. It's trying to build up the capabilities. But really, I think the notion is that you have to have your business brain about you. If I was starting a brand, Joe, today, I would probably do it very differently, because I wouldn't have the legacy of my years of discovery behind me. The Instagram page would look really clean. Like, I'd probably hire an agency. We don't have a PR agency. We've had a little PR support at a couple of our launches, but everything has been organic. We've not, paid for any sort of marketing really efforts. We've not pushed out the product, and it's been a completely organic journey so far. And the idea to raise money was to tell our story and sort of, put some marketing money behind this and, take it up a notch. But it's been a completely different way to do it organically. You give me an unlimited pool of capital, I'll do it very differently. But really, when you don't have the money and you have to be smart about how to turn it around, that's when it makes you really think of different ways to be creative and be in business. And our first employee is with us today. My first tailor, he's our cutting master, my first employee, my first pune, everybody is with us. So it's like a family, and, you have to build it up slowly. And I want to do this all my life, right? I'm in no hurry except to return investor money at the right time.
So you're in this for the long term, obviously, and just going back a bit before the funding aspects of this and so on. Obviously, you lived outside India for quite a while, but there's a clear Indian focus to the design ethic and so on. Also, one of the things you mentioned was your personal injury that led to taking a different path. Am I right in thinking that you were in New York on the 9/11 time, and also actually, I think either in the tower, or were you in the tower? Or right? What?
I'd like to forget that day.
Right.
But it was very unfortunate what happened. My accident wasn't related to 9/11, but I was very lucky to make it out. And that day, I think, just changed. I had gone to give a Goldman Sachs trading exam that day, and somebody actually has carried me 4 blocks to safety. And I think there's a lot of stories of people who made it out, and it really changes your worldview even then. So, COVID obviously was very serious, but I've had situations where, I don't know, maybe this day will come, maybe this day won't. My back then went, I was bedridden for so long. So really the worldview was, you've got one life to live, dream big, do what you're really passionate about. And if you're blessed enough to manage and be okay, you should choose between, do I want the money? Like, why am I doing this? Do I want to make money in the short term? Or do I want to do something with a passion for longevity and then really hope the money will come? Or maybe the money doesn't come, but you want to leave behind some sort of legacy. And I really found a gap in the market for soft vacation clothing and resort wear. I would say luxury resort wear at a time when nobody was doing, especially not in India. There was like all of 2-3 resort designers. But even internationally, resort wasn't taken as seriously as a business as the ready-to-wear business. The ready-to-wear business is, in fact, a major multiple of the resort business. Globally, I believe we're about $20 billion is the resort business, and 95 billion is the ready-to-wear business in America alone. So today, we are a crossover brand between ready-to-wear contemporary and resort. And the idea is really to have Verandah as a lifestyle brand and build it up as such. If I think Verandah is a feeling, we've sampled and we've done home. We've done several different projects and collaborations where we've dabbled in different avenues. So whether it's been sport, whether it's been home, whether it's been resort or ready to wear, the dream is big, but I think the way to get there is really little steps and surviving business cycles and really staying picky. It's almost like saying no to a lot of business to get the right quality of business if you're trying to build a luxury brand. When I started, I was selling 2,500 rupee shirts from home. That's how I started.
I was about to ask that, actually. What was your initial model? I mean, did you have a bricks and mortar outlet, or were you going down the e-commerce route in those early days? How did you actually get your message and your product out there?
Word of mouth, women wearing my clothes, and just one school mommy to another. I was the South Bombay mommy designer, and people came to me for wardrobes of like, hey, I'm going here on holiday. Can you make me 6-7 things? And okay, I'm going to Goa, or I'm going to Mykonos, I'm going to Ibiza, I'm going to the Maldives. And, slowly I started being that person that people would pick up the phone and say, tell me when you have something ready. We'd like to take some. Because I believe that luxury is, for me, is, at least in fashion, it is super comfortable. It is super soft. Softness for me I'm very big on softness. Anybody that asks me says should be comfortable and it should look chic. So what is it that's going to last long in your closet? So when people wear my clothes after 10 years, even today, the 2,500 rupee shirts, I see people wearing them. And I said, why do you still have it? And they're like, because it's great and it doesn't die and we love it. And I was laughing because I think that's really the point of the building the brand, is that we see our stuff. I just saw a few things on the Real. We're sitting here in Bombay, and that's amazing that people are buying Verandah at $500, $600, $700 and selling it on the Real. And there's an economy that's powering that. So hopefully we want to buy back, and we are a zero waste company. I don't actually have any scrap waste. We upcycle pretty much everything. We literally have 5 bags of production scraps, which we refashion into everything. So for me, that circular philosophy is amazing. We were so excited yesterday. We were sitting in the office and looking at the railroad, and I said, "Hey, there's Verandah." That's exciting. And for most people, that's not. People say, "Oh my God, that shouldn't be on the railroad." And I said, "No, it's like a circular economy. We should promote that, and we shouldn't dump. And clothes should last forever. And that to me is luxury, right? You have that one amazing jacket. You might have had it for 20 years, but when you put it on, you feel so good."
But do you operate in the traditional way of fashion houses in terms of developing, new seasons, or do you have a different model?
So I didn't. I was very whimsical. I designed when I wanted to, how I wanted to, sold who I wanted to. I refused to be on the fashion calendar. And I said, look, I'm a mom of 2. I want to get back to sports. I want to play golf. And I'm doing this, for fun. And the for fun became a bit too much. And then in 2017, I did Miami Swim Week, took my 2 little suitcases, and I got my first order from Neiman Marcus and a luxury website called Moda Brandy. And that really put me on a roller coaster because I had business I couldn't produce for and a very small team. And really, then you had to be picky to say, if you do this show, these are the customers. And it was a process of self-discovery. When I look at my previous collections, I see evolution also in the product, naturally. And then I look and I say, oh, wow, that was so simple what I did, like 5 years ago. But it was great. It sold, and I fully would wear it, and it's a learning process. So, yeah, I think it's always, the journey is always much more exciting for me. And I tell my team that all the time. I said, if you don't enjoy waking up every day in the morning and bouncing off the walls and coming to work, don't show up. Because everybody has good days and bad days. But if you're not so excited about this, don't show up.
Yeah, I have a thing called the Sunday evening test. And that is, if you're in the right place and doing the right thing, if on a Sunday evening, you're looking forward to Monday morning. If you are...
Absolutely. No, Joe, this is exactly it. And to be honest, with all due respect to my old banking friends, because I am very good friends with them, and they're the ones who also supported me in the business. Yeah. There came a point where I didn't feel that about banking anymore because I was riddled with this back problem. I just didn't feel physically good. And I just, somewhere mentally, I checked out. It was not the money anymore. I was debt free. So when I quit, I was debt free. I left before my bonus. I just quit. I went to Kerala to an Ayurvedic hospital as I'm supposed to get major back surgery. And I said, look, it's only one way, right? It can only go up from here because I have a life to live. And if I can't live my life, there's no point of having any money in the bank. So I was literally down to like flat when I started Verandah. And I was going to say we're still flat, but I said, now I just reinvested everything back into the business. And it's been really rewarding to even have something to show for it at the end of 10 years. I don't know how that, that sounds, but I feel like if we are designing holiday clothes, when we go for our shoots, anybody will tell you, oh, Verandah shoots look like a holiday, because they're supposed to be, right? We go on a shoot. If you don't go to the beach and have a beer, what's the point of working in the business? Because you're supposed to feel that joy.
Absolutely.
Right? You're not standing to slave holding a reflector for 12 hours and, going to sleep and waking up at 3:45 in the morning. You go for a midnight swim and, you wake up and you show up. But that's the joy of the journey.
Absolutely.
And does that feel like work, actually?
I was going to say, in developing the brand, was that a focus right from the beginning, or did that become more of a focus, once you started attending shows?
Retailing.
Yeah.
No, so when I did Fashion Week, to be honest, I didn't have any. So you asked me about e-commerce. Everything was word of mouth. I did not have a website. I did not have social media. The former editor of Vogue, who is a big supporter of me and the brand, who encouraged me. She said, just do a runway show. I got picked into the emerging designer program at Lakme, and she said, do a runway show. We'll all come and cheer for you. I said, what's the point? Like, how embarrassing if nobody likes my designs. I don't want to retail anywhere. She's like, just do it for the fun of it. It'll push you. And my first collection was made out of tencel and regenerated and denim waste from my husband's factory, and on one print. And that print got leaked out. And so I learned my lesson to say, okay, keep it small, keep it tight, and do everything at source. In a country like ours, unfortunately, IP is not the most valued asset. And Me Too's are very common, especially in the print business. So we got that very closely to our chest, and everything is sort of hand illustrated, and we work sort of 6 months ahead. Now I'm on the fashion calendar. I did not have a showroom or an agent or anything before. It was me selling out of 2 suitcases, asking customers, what's your minimum? They were asking me, what's your minimum order? And I said, 3 pieces of style. And people used to laugh at me and they say, okay, this is the girl from India with the 2 suitcases. And that's how I learned from taking an order, from designing the textiles. We sit and work on, I spend 6 months of the year just developing textiles with our partners and to stay what's true to the brand, and the other time on, print and designs. And everything is now, all our collections have a name. They tell a story. They're not named after seasons. So while right now we're showing next week in New York, High Summer 23, the name of the collection is called Pari Mahal. And it's called Pari Mahal because the entire collection is dedicated to the Mughal summer palace of Dara Shikoh, who was the son of Emperor Shah Jahan. It was built in 1650 AD, and it's beautiful little summer palace in the Mughal era in Srinagar that sits atop the Zabarwan Hills, and you can see all of Srinagar from there. It's just stunning. So I went there and I just fell in love with Kashmir last year, and I said, I've got to dedicate this entire year to Kashmir because I got to see it. And it was the flora and the fauna was my collection. And so it's called Pari Mahal. So the idea is today, if you pick up something and it says Pari Mahal, you'd say, oh, it's Pari Mahal. And then everything from Verandah has a little story about this is the inspiration. This is what, So tomorrow somebody visiting India is going to say, hey, listen, I'm wearing something from my work at Tiger Conservation. I designed that big collection around a missing tiger in Ranthambore. And now I'm on the board of Tiger Watch, the anti-poaching outfit in Ranthambore. And we raised a lot of awareness in our limited capacity for anti-poaching and the work that was going on in Rajasthan behind the scenes of all the 7-star and 5-star properties around there, because people will come and visit and nobody will know what it takes to keep that forest alive and tiger numbers alive. And conservation is a huge focus of ours. We've got a forest in Assam. We do a 1 tree planted for every purchase in a reserve called the Mole Forest Reserve on the banks of the Brahmaputra. We've adopted a sandbank. So we have a Verandah forest there. We educate, we've got a 200 kid education project in Ranthambore for educating poachers' children that we support, as well as we've adopted a portion of the coral reefs in the Andamans through an NGO partner called Reef Watch. And it's all sort of to educate also, apart from our basic commitment that I feel it should be a baseline. I actually don't think it's anything to show off about or anything. And I think everybody needs to be socially responsible. You really have one planet. You're going to screw it up, then your next generation is not going to have anything to play with. So that respect for the planet is very central to what we do at Verandah. It has to be with any product that's designed today. It's not just fashion. Fashion is a huge pollutant of the global landfill industry. It's just a massive pollutant. If you see the numbers, it's just second to the chemical industry, and that's just terrible. And so to design consciously is a very important focus of ours. And we're in the process of an international ESG assessment to data monitored to sort of really validate every single claim that we make. Because at the end of the day, anybody can say anything. There's so much greenwashing, you can market anything, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. But at the end of the day, we want to be certified by third parties, and it's a continuum. So if we do better, know better, we'll live better, we'll travel better, we'll make better choices, it's to be better people. I don't know, it's idealistic, but for me, it's so much a part of our ethos.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. And the fact that you've kind of built that in from the beginning is very important. Now, obviously, your part, you have a supply chain and a distribution model, which it sounds like you're distributing via major retailers, right?
Yeah. Yes. I forgot to tell you, we had no direct channel until last year. We just launched our website this past year. After 10 years in the business, we've launched e-commerce.
Okay.
I was selling directly. Instagram used to be flooded with, how do I order this? How do I buy this? How do I buy that? And we'd be shipping single pieces all over the place. And I was so running a customized luxury resort business that I needed to standardize, because we believe, you should waste less. So you have to cut smarter, smaller lots. And we've had a learning process this year in terms of how to manage inventory. But I have one store in Goa, which I opened in the pandemic. So we have one flagship. We have a studio in Mumbai, and we have an India dedicated site and a global site. So we fulfill out of the US and also out of India. But the interesting part is how people were aware of the brand before we even started retailing, because it was so much, word of mouth, that the possibility to scale was very exciting. And we had no retail channel before. I only got a website after we started retailing at Neiman Marcus.
Right. So,
we had a landing page.
So, Neiman Marcus, that whole thing arose from your trip to a fashion show, right?
Yes.
This is the two suitcase thing that you were talking about. So, I mean, going from relatively low volumes to presumably much larger volumes with a retailer of that size, I mean, that creates fulfillment problems, right?
Yes, it does. But in a way, I mean, it kind of, when it rains, it pours. So it's everybody wants their orders at the same time. And the fashion business is actually very funny. One can never really predict. I mean, you're looking at where the Fed's raising and where inflation is going. You're trying to predict, your numbers every season. And we always try and predict our numbers. We've actually just slowly building up a sales team overseas. Because I can't be on a plane everywhere every time, and it takes a lot of travel. This job takes a lot of travel. But it's very interesting, because today if one retailer wants it, then the other 5 want the same thing, which it's tough because the entire garment is. So we built our own capacity. We've got an atelier here. We've got a small little factory here. And I think what makes us different from other brands is that because I have an understanding of the manufacturing business, sort of being married into somebody who used to export to a lot of retailers. I was very happy running a wholesale business, but now I think direct to consumer has to kick in at some point. So we've launched a direct to consumer portal, so to speak. But I think there's a lot to be said about respecting the wholesale business, because for me, strategically, I think we've not had the capital to put behind marketing efforts. And today, if you are with a respected retailer and the retailer underwrites you, then there's a lot of validity to brand positioning as well. And we've stayed quite niche. So we actually haven't taken business that we don't want to produce for. And we've got it done. We haven't slept. We've run nights. It's a tricky to handle capacity, but we hopefully treat our people well enough that if we need something done, everybody jumps to it. And we've managed, we always have to predict season by season. So
absolutely. Fine. Well, getting to that side of things, actually, you from the website, it does seem that you've got a very sort of distinctive vibe, and I presume that extends to the kind of culture that you've tried to develop within the organization. Now, obviously, you started basically yourself and then have expanded out beyond that. How have you helped try to promote those vibes throughout the business?
So one thing I'll say, we've been terrible on LinkedIn, because I've told my whole team we really need to all get on LinkedIn to sort of share stories. Every time I see LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, wow, brands are really telling their stories. We just, honestly, marketing is all under me. So I'm the marketing person, I'm the designer, it's just wear too many hats. So we're trying to build a bit of capability here. But I think our team, I read this, I'm sure, I don't know if you've read this book, Netflix, the Netflix story, No Rules Rules.
Which one, sorry?
No, the story of Netflix, the Netflix culture.
No, I haven't actually. I haven't. I should.
So I read a lot of this. I read a lot of this stuff now. So I stopped watching TV 10 years ago. When I quit banking, I stopped watching television. When I say television, I don't watch Netflix. I don't even watch Netflix.
Got it.
I've seen probably 3 shows on Netflix in 6 years. And that too, not all the entire show. Fauda season 3. I mean, just like things my husband said, if you don't watch, I will sort of leave you. But I sort of stopped cold turkey. The only thing I'll watch is the Grand Slam final and a bit of golf on a big screen. But that's it. I don't even know how to turn my TV on. So I have enough time to read a bit. And I read these books that talk to you a lot about, culture. The Mark McCormick book as well about the IMG culture. And really, I think Goldman Sachs, actually, I think, funnily enough, had a lot to do with this. They gave us a book when we were interns. I was 19, I think. They gave us a book called Culture of Success. It was the story of the Goldman Sachs partnership. And we all had to read it, and we all had to do a test on it. And, there was a bunch of us that were sitting saying, why do we have to read this book? And all of us, I'm friends with my first group, my class of 2000 summer class. And it's so true because their credo and their business principles, your clients are your asset and your reputation. Your reputation is your asset. And you have to always strive for sort of excellence, right? And that's in fashion. I don't know if you know this, but at least I cannot stand, and this is probably the investment banking hangover, I cannot, for 2-3 things I can't stand. I can't stand laziness. I'm kind of a wired, 24/7 person. So I don't expect my team to write back to me at crazy odd hours, very WhatsApp driven. I think the culture of excellence is very important. Mutual respect, a 360-degree review process, which I think, and sort of be a nice guy. Goldman used to have a review process with 360-degree review, which means somebody from your assistant to your boss to anonymous people could review you. And if you didn't cut the review, you obviously didn't either get a good bonus or were sort of not looked at very favorably. So it kind of forced you to be a nice guy in the organization, almost. Because if you're not sort of an overall Mr. Nice Guy every single day, and you can fake it once, you can fake it twice, right? But inherently, if you don't know how to treat people well, I think that's what we do well at Verandah. Is it's very much a family vibe, and I'm very high on emo and EQ. So I think it's very important to have a very strong emotional quotient as well, and emotional intelligence at work, because you're dealing with people issues. I think as time goes by, I find myself dealing with a lot more people related, HR related things that keep coming up, and it's how you handle people and take people up with you. So it's not that you want to have people stay at certain level or stay down in their skill set. So somebody who's example, like my first tailor, I did Lakme Fashion Week with no master, one tailor, who I put in my husband's sampling room, and I paid a bit of the rent. And I said, can I please I don't have space. I was working out of home. I said, I just need one machine. And he's our cutting master today. And the idea for him was to move up the value chain. Look, he's been at Verandah for so long. He needs to elevate his positioning, and as he enhances his skill set. And I feel that's true for everybody in the team. There are things that you can learn on the job. I think it's very much on the job learning. And if you're self-motivated, it will weed out people who are not excellent. So it's kind of self-selection. It's like if you are driven by the purpose and by the job, and if you're happy at work, if you're not happy, nothing I do, anybody does, is going to make somebody either stay. People always ask, how come people are staying with you forever? And I'm very blessed. I mean, I think either have really amazing people, or we've done something right, I think culturally, because it's combined with a feeling of wanting to be better, even if you're not completely educated to that mark. It's just being better, constant learning, and also treating people with a lot of respect, because for me, I never look at resumes. I have never hired people from a CV. I have never hired somebody who's cookie cutter. Somebody has always come to me via something and has been at a crossroads in life and said, okay, I need to talk to you. What do I do? I have 100 CVs sitting on my desk, which I do not look at. And anybody writing to Verandah for a job knows that I do not look at resumes. So I politely say, no, thank you. We're not hiring. But somebody I hired in design just recently has been writing to me for 3 years. She was on a break from a previous job. She wanted to go back to her rural farming community and do something with the farmers. She'd had some NGO experience, and I've had some social venture capital experience as well. My heart is really very much in the social sector as well. And she came to me and I said, since you've written to me so many times now that we're hiring, I put a post on LinkedIn. We got shut down the first day because of too many applications. And I said, I pulled it out and I said, this is too much. I can't look at it. But her CV was on the top because she just did it 1,000 times. I said, okay, we're calling this girl. So she came in the night to my little office in Lower Parel and said, I need to meet you. I said, come. And I said, this job is not for you. Your heart is with your farming community. Go back and do something with your farmers. And she wanted to build a marketplace. But she said, look, I want to do this long term, but I really don't have the money. And she's a sustainable knitwear designer. And she's like, I really want to work at Verandah because I believe in your goal. Is there anything you can do for me? She joined me I gave her a consulting assignment. I said, we don't keep unpaid interns. Everybody knows we don't keep interns. I gave her a paid consulting assignment, made her sign an NDA. She went into, and then when I went to hire somebody full time, she put her hand up. She said, hey, can I come? I said, sure. On her start date, she's disappeared into, I don't know if you know what Vipassana is. Vipassana is when you... Mindfulness, but you're not talking, you're off the grid, basically.
Okay.
She's like, I'm having an existential crisis. I'm going into hiding. This was a key time when we were designing for spring. So I told her, she said, you're going to be very upset with me. I said I was starting, but I'm having this crisis. I need to go. I said, go. She came back. I said, you'll have your job when you come back. And I said, do this for as long as you want to. She's on our ESOP pool. I said, you get a full-time position. You go on the weekends and you do your thing. Because she started crying. I said, the point is, you are driven by passion as a person. You're driven by excellence and you are willing to do anything to make this happen. And you want to work for the greater good. So I don't care if you moonlight with your farming community on your days off. We give, I said, take your leave and go. And she's like, I would have never got a job like this anyway. And I said, because I believe in people. It's like you believe if somebody's being honest with you. And, so I don't know. I spend a lot of time getting to know people. I love people. And I hopefully try and not get it wrong. But we have a very small knit team. And my sister just joined me this year. And as also my brother-in-law, who comes with 25 years experience in luxury. And my sister from a venture capital background has joined me. So we're a little team. And they think I'm crazy, but it's lots of fun.
Well, the culture sounds brilliant and the way it's grown. And one of the things I wanted to ask actually was, when you finally did take external funding, did that change those aspects at all? Or were you allowed pretty much to do more of the same, just at scale?
I was allowed. So our team is pretty much, so strangely what I did is before I got the funding, I took a family bridge and I put everything in place before I even got the funding. And it was a crazy idea because if I hadn't got it, I would have actually, in hindsight, been okay, but I would have had to not do some of the things I wanted to do. I took this crazy family bridge. 1st of January, I called, we had a family meeting. And I said, I need a loan because I believe there's a next phase of growth. And 6 months down the line, I want to raise some capital. But I don't want to go out to raise capital before I have a stronger base. So I built the base before I went to get the funding, and I made the pipeline of the business before I could pick up the phone and talk to an investor. So that to me actually helped a lot. Definitely after we raised the funding, I've slept very little. I sleep very little anyways, but I think my investors have been angels. They're true angels. They've been on, everybody pretty much knows me. Most of them are from my finance previous life. And that makes me feel good because they know me, they know my work, they know my work ethic and my commitment. So if I've taken $1 of capital, I won't sleep till I, do good by them. I think they know that. That being said, one can never tell where life takes you. But it's definitely been, now that I've got somebody's money, it doesn't matter if it's 2 rupees or 10 rupees. Optically, every time on the golf course, I get stressed out saying, oh my God, somebody will say, what's she doing on the golf course? She's supposed to be at work. And I play sport. Like, I really enjoy sports. So, now I'm a weekend golfer. My handicap's gone higher. And somebody this morning told me, Anjali, your handicap's gone so high. You're obviously working because you're not playing weekday golf. So, I mean, you have to choose. I'm giving myself a few years to be on the hamster wheel, till it really settles down. But I think any founder will tell you that you have to be at it. And if the buck stops at you, right? So I've put some structure in the organization, hopefully, but the buck does stop at me. So it's hard to switch off.
Well, when it comes to these types of discussions around finances and stuff, some people talk about, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. And when it comes to external funding, quite often, certainly in the .com type businesses, we've seen the pursuit of massive growth outweighing issues like profit and so on. What has been your position on that?
Mine is profit is sanity. I'll be very honest with you. I think it's very important to have a big turnover vision and be driven with that the minute, because people invest in you because they believe that your business has growth potential. At least at our stage of the business, we are very much a growth brand and an emerging brand. And I have one little store in Goa, right? We've not even scratched the surface of the store growth. We haven't scratched the surface of any marketing efforts, really. PR agencies, nothing big budget, nothing, right? We haven't scratched anything. People have invested, I think, in us because they believe, A, the brand has a story that's worth selling, that we have a team that will be able to execute that vision with a little help. But they have respected me when I have said that it is very important for us to make sure that our unit economics are in place so that we have enough cash in the business to survive. Because if your unit economics are not, if you don't have your eye on them, you will realize it's very easy to burn money, right? We built the team. Obviously, every growth business has a burn. But for us, it's very important to make sure that at the end of the day, there is a point, and I know that point exactly when our turnover hits what the horseshoe should be. Everybody should have a very clear idea as to what is that magic number that's going to make you go uptick. But till then, in the luxury business, at least, it's very important to be picky and choose the right channels. Because today, if you're everywhere, nobody will want you initially, right? You really have to be at the best points of sale. Today, I'm the only Indian designer at Bergdorf Goodman in New York. And Bergdorf for me was the mecca of fashion when I lived in New York. I would never have dreamed in a million years. I remember when I did my first season at Miami, I went to Bergdorf in New York and I literally looked at that building and I looked at the floor. I'm like, oh my God, I just wish one day. And I had to pinch myself and I said, now that we're here, we've got to make sure that we cannot mess anything up, right? Because you cannot be brand dilutive at the cost of revenue until you can afford to be so, right? So a lot of people tell me, Anj, your prices have just gone up. And, I said, we're building a luxury business and we're doing it in the right methods. So naturally, the costs are going to go up. But at the same time, why are we not doing a mass business yet? Because if we do a mass business, unless the machinery is in place that we can produce with our same zero waste philosophy, with our sustainable fabrications, with our fair wages. Today, we are not a fast fashion brand. We don't want to be a fast fashion brand. We want to be a luxury brand. And that's going to take time. And our investors understand that. It's just, in Hindi, they say, na, ye lambe race ka ghoda hai. So it's like you're running a marathon, right? You're not running a sprint here. So I felt like I was running a sprint last year, but it's sort of best to pause. But I think at some point you'll have to push the revenue top line. But for now, I think it's very important to be, profit based as well. I've never been one to say we have the money to do everything. You have to really pick your battles. Today, if we had money, I would happily hire an agency because I know which agency I want, and it's the excellent one. It's not the one that's anyone.
Yeah.
We've also been very lucky to be signed by an international luxury showroom who represents us internationally. It was a very big move. It was a very big transition for us, and we spent months trying to actually work on it. They're based in London and New York. And I'm trying to hand over my baby to them to help assist us in managing the stores and all the wholesale relationships. So that's a big one. And it's very important to build the right partnerships. But today, if we were being sort of brand diluted, sort of gone with anybody, we wouldn't have probably ended up with them,
Yeah. So your approach and the future for Verandah is not based upon a mass approach, but very much on a somewhat a niche approach, actually, in order to avoid diluting.
I think it's a niche approach, but hopefully we can figure out something that sells a lot and really well.
Of course.
So
yeah.
So yes, I do think revenue can be either realized by you sell 1,000 things at 1 rupee or one thing at 1,000 rupees, and we're very clear. We'll produce that one thing at 1,000 rupees really well. And not hope that somebody buys it, really build the brand story that we put in. We put our whole and soul into doing that right before we do the 1,000 things.
Absolutely. Well, look, I realize I've taken up quite a bit of your time. So just one last question before we go. And that is, from all of this, from your career, setting up Verandah and taking it to where you've got now, what would be the main learnings that you've had about yourself as an entrepreneur, and what would be your guidance for others?
I think the thing that's most underrated, I think, is resilience. More than anything, I think every entrepreneur that you'd meet, successful or not, I think just our nature is really to be resilient. And I have become, it's taught me to be less emotional. I'm quite an emotional person. It's taught me to take things less personally and to try and take myself out of a situation and look at it from a third person's point of view. Because I think what ends up happening, and especially with design, right? Today, if my designs are not well received this season, I think the biggest stress is, okay, this season was good. What about next season? Will somebody like my design, right? It's a very subjective thing. So a lot of people say, how do you know that next season will go well? Well, hopefully you build a brand that everybody wants to see what you're doing season after season. That's the idea. So you need to set the brand identity, ethos, signature down so that people will know what to expect. So they don't want new wine. They want old wine in new bottle. And so we get bored very easily. And I would love to over-design and I over-develop. And people keep telling me, buyers say, Anj, don't make it so complicated. You're doing that thing. Tory Burch made one shoe. And she sold it like hotcakes. But she was known for one shoe. Now she's doing everything, right? It takes time. Right? Most successful brands, I think, started with really just one signature item, right? And we do kaftans, hopefully. I mean, I'm a kaftan girl and we do kaftans well, and I'll be very happy if the whole world started wearing kaftans. But, the point is that you've got to be resilient because seasons change, styles change. Today you may be in fashion, tomorrow you may not be in fashion. And you got to be really sure that what you're building is something for the long haul and that you'll be around. So COVID, pretty much none of us thought we'd be around. I was in the export business, the world shut down. So I drove to Goa, painted a store, took all my inventory there. And, it's like when life gives you lemon, make lemonade, right? It's actually quite as simple as that. It's just harder to execute, especially given the world's liquidity problems of late. Like cash flows are any entrepreneur's biggest issues. Like, oh my God, how do I make sure I have enough cash in the bank to get to do the things that I want to do? And it's really resilience and discipline of, this.
Well, I think you've shown a lot of resilience and a lot of discipline, from back in the days when you were in New York, 9/11, the back injury, setting up Verandah and taking it to where you've brought it now. It's been a fascinating conversation, Anjali, and thank you very, very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure, and it's good to see you after so many years, Joe.
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll do it again. And next time
hopefully there'll be something will still be around to show for it. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Anjali.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.